What's up, everyone? This is the Master Ronan R channel. My name is Richie, and this is the first video face reveal on this channel, so I appreciate everybody who supported me. And I kind of got a little bit of an improv video here today. We have HangarOfRoam and JeanYesJedEye, and what we're going to do is we're going to watch this using math to settle Pokemon's biggest debate. We're going to watch this video and we're going to give our comments, our thoughts, our feedback, and have a little bit of discourse and have fun discussing our thoughts on this one. And so I'll kind of go through. Hanger, if you want to preface anything before we start, and Jean, you can do the same thing, and then we'll kind of just roll right through this.
Yes. Hello. So, yeah, HangarOfRoam, the Gen 2 Roamer methods guy, along with Rich. So, first off, I just kind of want to say, like, I do not know adef. I do not dislike adef. Like, that's an important clarification to make at the start of a video like this. You know, I don't want people going into comment sections, being nasty, seeking him out. I think that should go without saying, but, you know, there's, like, YouTube road rage. That's, like, a bit of a thing. And he's made a video, which is, like, a brave thing to do, quite honestly. Because he's talking about a topic which is recurring. You know, when I was streaming daily in 2020, it was, like, a topic every single day. That's how much of a hot potato this topic is. Like, it just keeps coming back. And I think a bigger question is, why does it keep coming back? I think I have an opinion on that, and I expect you guys have an opinion on why that is.
Yeah, for sure. And, Jean, do you have anything to say before we start off?
Yeah. So, Jean here. I would just like to start off saying that I shiny hunt here and there, not as big anymore, but I still do it here and there. And I've done both full odds and method hunts. So I have an interesting opinion on this. I'll just leave it at that for now.
Yeah, and I'll just start my preface by saying, you know, and this speaks for all three of us. We love Pokemon and shiny hunting, but it's not like our life. Like, we've all taken breaks from this. I mean, this video.
I mean, it was mine.
October. That's true.
Christ, for a little bit there.
So, like, this video was released in October of 2024, and we're all just finding out about it. Just kind of by chance last night. I got this through another streamer, Wretched Pokemon. I was in his Twitch stream. We were just kind of casually discussing this. He asked me shortly I saw this video. I was like, nah, I did not. I just kind of been off the scene. It's kind of how I work with shiny hunting, on and off. But I've been doing this for over a decade. And, you know, at the end of the day, kind of like Jean was saying, I shiny hunt multiple different ways, whether it's just single hunting, method hunting, you know, and even in the past, maybe some multi-hunting. But really...
Right.
You know...
So we all do it to have a good time, don't we?
Right.
Yeah, you know, it's really more about, for me anyway, really is about the probability. And, you know, you could sit at your desk and roll dice... and flip coins, but that's no fun. That's why Pokemon shiny hunting is like the ultimate thing, because there's so many different things you can chase and there's so many different stats you can compile. It's just kind of a way to see probability play out over time. I think that's why it's so interesting to me personally. But, you know, like Hanger was saying, I don't know adef or anything. I've never seen any of his videos. This video... What we're going to discuss isn't about him directly. It's just about what he has to say in his video, because between all of us...
And we should add as well, this is fluid. Like, this is not to a script. This is not rehearsed. This is just a roundtable discussion. Like, we're just here watching this.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think each of us have only seen this once, and there's just so many things that pop in our heads because, you know, like Hanger's saying, this topic just creeps its way back up. like every time.
Yeah.
Michael Myers.
And to touch back on that, I think that the reason that it creeps back up, the reason that it recurs, and the reason that it was a topic in my stream every single day when I was strictly single hunting roamers, right? So naturally, that was like a conduit for this sort of talk coming to me. The reason for that is because I think there's a lot of half-truths in this video, and it is like the common rhetoric, which leads to a lot of people just feeling like their view is not accounted for. You know, if you go through the comment section on that video, which I did a little bit, you know, there's a few people pointing out the sort of overall probability of, you know, comparing 4 systems to 1 system, and how, you know, it's like approximately 1 in 2048. If you're resetting 4 systems at a single time, that's an approximation. Not exactly, but it gets down to that level.
Yeah, and so we'll be able to touch on that really in depth, because I know that's going to come up. And so I think the format, what we're going to do is kind of watch this and pause, make comments, is kind of just go through the video, and we'll kind of see where the discussion leads, you know, based on what's being presented in this video. So with that said, let's just kind of go ahead and get this started here.
And in the words of renowned shiny hunter Absolblog's Pokemon, shiny hunting is a very personal journey. Now, the way you choose to go about it is, oh my god, fine.
So I don't know if you could read those comments that were being put up there, but I guess we'll kind of just go through.
It's a recurring topic, man.
Yeah.
So I guess the whole premise of this video kind of really upset me, because nobody is like seriously making this argument that he's going to present that multi-hunting is a method hunt. Like, they're going to take that premise so literally. And that's kind of what really enraged me, I guess. You know, I don't know if enraged is the right word. You know, people are going to say, like, why do you care about this stuff so much? And like we said, we've taken breaks from this. We come back. But, you know, when you're in the hobby and you're doing this, and you want to be surrounded by like-minded people to be able to relate to stuff, and then you just are faced with dishonest people who are, you know, just at the end of the day trying to be very condescending and tell you what they're doing.
I think,
you know,
that's an important distinction, right? Because I don't think it's dishonest so much as not telling the whole truth. Like, I think there's semantics at play here. Like, I think there's like a philosophical point that is being missed entirely by this sort of mathematical breakdown.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Because,
as opposed to people purposely being dishonest, it seems like they just don't understand where most of the people coming from, saying, you know, mostly jokingly, that a multi-hunt is a method hunt. Nobody's saying it literally. They're just saying, ultimately, what it comes down to is you're using a method to speed up the hunt, which in turn ultimately increases your odds over time. But we'll get into the specifics of that as we go.
So yeah, so like how your pause here, I think this is a good point. Like, just looking at that comment and hearing what he said, where he was saying, shiny hunting is a journey, like a personal journey. And so I took it as, these are the hunts I wanted to do. These are like, there's nothing like, oh, I have to do this because it's full odds, or I have to do this, or I can't do this because it's not full odds. It's something, if it's something I wanted to hunt, that was what I hunted. So looking at the comment, like, that you see on the screen, if you use more than one game, it's cheating. Like, how does that equate to cheating? I feel like that logic there kind of puts the whole thing of what is considered cheating in shiny hunting Like, are you saying methods are cheating? Are you saying if you're changing the odds in any way, is it cheating? And I feel like that's kind of where a lot of this whole method versus full odds questioning comes into play, is because there's a view of it being less than.
You're right. And then there's people like me where the full odds thing doesn't even matter. Like, why is full odds even relevant? It's not relevant without the context, right? Like, it's kind of, it was a figure of language, I think, because how would you contextualize what someone is doing? You can do it quite easily shorthand by just saying, he's doing a full odds hunt. You know, everyone knows what that means. Sort of.
Yeah, as we'll see, maybe not.
There's a lot of different parameters.
But I think some of these arguments here that are being presented in these screenshots aren't serious arguments.
No 2 hunts, what are they?
Nobody's going to say that, you know, using more than one game is cheating, like, legitimately. These are just trolls or bots or something like that they're going to...
Yeah, based on that name, it has to be a troll.
Yeah, you're not wrong.
But that's kind of the point of why I guess we've come to the point where we felt like we need to discuss this video, because quite clearly, and I know that they know that this is a joke comment, but they're actually going to just base this whole video premise on this. But let's kind of just go ahead and see what else has to be said.
Shiny hunting is a very personal journey. Now, the way you choose to go about it is, oh my god, fine. I'm not someone who shiny hunts very regularly, but what I am is the Pokemon math guy. You annoy shiny hunters? Stupid, but not necessarily my business. But you use wrong or poorly constructed math arguments to spread misinformation online or make stupid claims? Now it's personal. Today, I'm going to settle an argument one.
I just wanted to pause it there because I think it gets personal for us after that too. Because, you know, it's one thing to just look at the math, but to erase the whole idea of the point behind what encounters mean, to separate encounters from time, is what this video I think is going to do. And that just doesn't really make sense at the end of the day.
That is the crux of this. You know, for me, talking about the full odds just then and how it's kind of arbitrary to me, that's the crux of this for me, because you have three things like existing in a bubble in this video. I think you have probability in one bubble, you have the encounter number in another bubble, and time in another bubble. But really, the most meaningful metric of all is to bring them all together, and you have probability over time. The time to odds. So the number of encounters you're going to see in a given hour, you can work out the probability that you might see a shiny within a given hour. And I think that is what is currently kind of why I felt the need to chime in on this. You know, considering that that was something I regularly used to quote in my streams, that I would open the stream and I would say, okay, 2% chance we're going to see it today. And it gives everyone a point of reference for what we're doing, right? Like, that's not difficult to understand.
Exactly, yeah.
That's pretty relatable.
It kind of makes you wonder, too, in this video, they're not really going to mention time until the end, but it's like everybody knows that time is a very important part of shiny hunting, because otherwise they wouldn't make videos titled, you know, fastest 8192 full odds shiny hunts or something like that.
Well, time is the only constant, isn't it? You know, the encounter rate is a variable.
If it all just came
even the probability is a variable. If you're not strictly doing 1 in 8192 hunts, that is a variable. So for me, the time is the only thing that can really be constant. And that's why it's so important, I think.
And so we're going to play and go through again here.
Once and for all, that's been raging in the Pokemon community for years.
Wait, has this debate been raging for years? I think the debate that they're talking about isn't this one, but let's see.
Buckle up, gamers. I'm a drama YouTuber now. Except, not at all.
I like the humor there, though. I'll give him that. Like the backwards cap, the sass.
Are multi-game hunts method hunts? That's the question that has sparked a lot of debate over the years, not just amongst shiny hunters, but also between shiny hunters and shiny hunting content consumers.
But that's not what the biggest debate's been. When it comes to this debate that I think that they wanted to touch on was, is multi-hunting still considered quote-unquote full odds? And like Hangar saying, how do you even define full odds to begin with? And I think in the video, he's going to say, full odds or base odds, which probably makes more sense. But even that term alone is just, it's so like, you have to be very specific per hunt. So it doesn't really mean anything. It's
a pretty loose definition, isn't it? It's kind of what I was saying about it being semantics, and it's shorthand for announcing what you're doing in a way. Like, yes, I'm doing a full odds hunt. Okay, there's like some vague context there. But, it was like I was saying to you earlier, me doing the mahogany method and getting 12 roamers per hour is not the same full odds hunt as me doing the Route 38-32 poison method and getting like 40 per hour. That's a completely different hunt. And this doesn't even touch on multi-hunting or anything like that. Those are two things categorically that are full odds, but they are in no way similar. Carried out in completely different ways, seeing completely different numbers. And yet, you end up with the same result.
And despite largely going after the same Pokemon in most cases between those two type of hunts, which is crazy to think about.
So I do think it's a big language problem. Like, I think that is what causes a lot of these debates.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think the question that's always been, I guess, the big question is the current question that's being discussed of, is it a method hunt? I don't know if I've ever heard this actually being asked until this video. But I've always heard, like, is multi-hunting still full odds? And I think that's the question that I usually hear people ask.
That's definitely
or what's the difference between that and speeding up the game?
Those would definitely be the two better ways to word pretty much the same kind of premise of what they're going to try to discuss. But since they're actually not basing it specifically the way that it's presented when these arguments or debates or however you want to word it comes up within the quote unquote Pokemon shiny hunting community, then they're just gonna, this video is just gonna dance around what everybody's pretty much arguing about anyway to begin with. And so it just adds to the confusion, like it has been for the past decade, of people still not understanding what most people value being time, as opposed to just the odds of a single game giving you a shiny.
Let's continue with the video.
To answer this question properly and definitively, we need to understand what it really means. Also, before we get started, I just want to give an extra special thank you to Absol for answering a lot of my questions about shiny hunting while I was researching for this video, and also giving some historical context about method hunts. Thank you, Absol. First of all, what is a method hunt? Well, method hunting basically means that you're using some kind of in-game mechanic as a method to increase the odds of finding a shiny.
And so I'm just going to stop it here because right off the bat, this whole video is almost just a waste of time based on this question. If method hunting is in-game, then of course multi-hunting is going to be, the answer is going to be no, that it's not a method hunt. You already defined that it's specifically in-game. Why even continue the video at this point? And just to kind of backtrack a little from what we were saying in the beginning about adef, that none of us have come across them, but obviously he hasn't shiny hunted much, so it's hard to, I guess, I don't want to blame him for not presenting this stuff, right? He's just kind of getting filled in what shiny hunting is all about. He's probably just been told that this is what the argument's been the past couple of years or whatever. Not what Jean was referring to a little while ago about with the real, where the real tension comes between certain shiny hunters, which is whether multi-hunting's speeding up, not whether multi-hunting is actually a method hunt.
Which it obviously is, right? And that's like the whole disgruntlement. Like, that's why there's so many comments that are still saying, no, he's wrong, because there's all of these people that believe, yes, it is, because it obviously is. Like, if you add more systems and more encounters to a hunt, your average chance of seeing a shiny goes up, right? And you will just naturally see more over time. And that's like the whole crux of it.
and I think that's
kind of not acknowledging that.
I think that's where like the English that we were just talking about comes in, where it's like it all depends on how you define it. Like he's clearly defining method as a specific thing, and based on that definition, no, full odds with multiple systems is not a method hunt, just based off of that definition. And so now it becomes, is that definition the correct definition of method hunting? Is that the accepted definition? Like, that's, I guess, part of the argument, or part of the whole debate, is what is defined as a method hunt. And if there's no clear definition, then this is going to continue, because one side thinks a method hunt is specifically based on something in game, and another side thinks it's not. It's any type of method to get to where you're going.
But he understands this, so I think I want to give him some credit, because he's trying to outline definitions here, which, again, that's not an easy thing to do.
And so, based on his definition that he provided, it's not a method hunt, because it has to be something that's in game.
And we would all agree with that. But where it comes down to is, like we're saying, practically, when people say multi-hunting is a method hunt, they just mean that you're using a real-world method to get your shinies faster and increase your odds, not to do it in-game. And like Hanger said, I think a lot of people in the comments section realize that. So let's continue.
But you saying increase the odds, that's going to wind a lot of people up. Because there's the common rhetoric, which does get repeated in this video, which is, it doesn't change the odds. The odds are still 1 in 8,192. But if you step back and you look at the four systems as like a unified thing, then it's not. You can effectively look at the four systems as like 1 in 2,048 or whatever, because it's like 1 minus 8191 over 8192 to the power of 4 or whatever. And it comes out to be essentially the same, to a few decimal places different.
And I think, like, even the better way to say it, it's especially since we've all agreed that time is the most important thing here, is everybody, you're doing this against your time is the most consistent thing. So multi-systems increases the time to the chances of getting it faster. So the time to shiny increases
time to
with
odds.
The more systems. Correct. Time to odds. And I think that is a more consistent statement versus it increases the odds. Because that's going to be a whole nother debate of, does it increase the odds? Does it not? But it does increase the time to odds.
Because again, I want to be clear, his maths is like correct in this video. It's correct.
Indeed.
But it's how you look at the maths.
Yep. All right.
Anyway, I think we should play it. Let him go through the definitions.
For instance, the Masuda method. This is probably the most well-known method and also the namesake behind using the word method in this context. Basically, by breeding together two Pokemon from two different language copies of the game, like a Japanese Ditto and an English Aggron, you have a higher chance of getting a shiny from the resulting egg. Another example of a popular method hunt would be radar hunting from Generation 4. Basically, as your radar chain increases, your shiny odds improve. But in both of these contexts, and in the context of any method, you increase the odds from so-called full odds or base odds to something more favorable. And again, for any method hunt, you are using pre-existing in-game mechanics. Now, multi-game hunting is exactly what it sounds like. You're just playing on several copies of the game simultaneously. This is an out-of-game change. It doesn't affect the way the game plays, it's not an in-game mechanic, it doesn't change the odds, it's just playing several games at the same time. Now, multi-game hunting has been done pretty much since the dawn of shiny hunting. It's not a new thing, but
I specifically wanted to pause it there because this is something that we've always talked about, the fact that just because it started this way doesn't mean that the arguments that people made then can still continue today. Because when I got into shiny hunting in like 2009, 2010, I was in college watching middle schoolers, people like LJ, were shiny hunting like their whole summer, quad hunting all way back then. And basically the only arguments would come up because, everybody on YouTube was edgy back then, where they would be like, they would do the thing where you multiply the whole systems. And that math stuck throughout the past decade. And nobody since then ever really discussed the time to odds like we've all been hitting on.
But yeah, give him credit again because his definitions are quite clear. His definition for the multi-hunt is just when you're adding factors outside the game, essentially.
Yeah.
Which I think he's... Yes.
Go ahead. So, when we're talking about, for example, the Masuda method or shiny charms, when it's calculating the shiny, is there still a chance of one number being the shiny and it just rolls 3 times, or is it now 3 numbers being the shiny and it rolls once?
The way I understand it is it rolls 3, but you know how I am with modern games. I don't.
That's what I'm not 100% sure, but if it rolls 3 times and it's still a 1 out of 8192, then it's technically still, it just rolls it 3 times versus it actually being 3 out of 8192.
Yeah, I think it shoots 3 of the
but we can
PIDs
talk about that later.
I think you're right, though. I think there are separate rolls.
So it's still 1 out of 8192. It's just you get 3 chances versus it being actually 3 out of 8192.
That's what most people seem to say about it. Yep. All right, we'll continue.
But it has become more common in recent years as people get access to more copies of the games over time. Maintenant, imaginez
I'm just gonna.
Attends.
I'm gonna skip the ad part.
I mean, his French was impressive. Didn't expect it.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised. It came out of nowhere.
I was like, whoa, holy shit.
I couldn't help but
This guy's
laugh
from
at the
France.
kind of somewhat, I guess, unironic that it involves French language and French shiny hunters was like a whole source of drama years ago. Hopefully that's over with, but
I remember that.
Yeah, I'd rather not address it.
yeah, I don't.
hunting video on
We're all
YouTube
in the same
often
category.
have the same first question. Is multi-game hunting not a method hunt? I think the question is actually pretty reasonable. To a first-time observer, it certainly seems like people hunting on multiple games should find the shiny sooner, right? It feels like their odds are better. I mean, somebody hunting on 10 copies of the game usually finds the shiny faster than somebody just hunting on 1, right?
Right. That's what.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
our argument.
Just, yeah. That's it. He said it.
Cue the video.
On average, you will find it faster.
Yeah, time to odds will be quicker.
This is it. Okay,
And
continue.
I was going to say, another thing that's very briefly going to get mentioned at some point is going to be RNG manipulation. And if they're going to argue that the odds, if the biggest deal is the specific encounter odds in your game, then you could pretty much really say that you just RNG manip the full odd shiny, but we'll let this roll and see what it is.
Something I've said a lot in my videos is that nobody understands probability. Not really. It's a very difficult subject to understand. Probability is super counterintuitive. To me, at least, I think it's understandable for a first-time observer to think that multi-game hunting might increase your odds of finding a shiny, but it doesn't. Let me say that even more plainly. Multi-game hunting is not a method hunt. Let's take a look at the math and I'll show you exactly why. A common argument I see is people like to say that, like method hunting, shouldn't multi-game hunting increase your odds by a discrete amount? Like, for example, if I'm playing on Pokemon Fire Red, if I shiny hunt there, my odds are 1 in 8,192 to find a shiny on any given encounter. But if I hook up a second copy of the game and now I'm playing on 2 copies of Fire Red, shouldn't my odds add together and now my shiny odds are 2 in 8,192? Well,
But this
not
is
exactly.
disingenuous.
But
that is just disingenuous.
And I was thinking the same thing.
That's not even the correct formula, is it? Which I think he knows, and he explains later on, if I'm not mistaken.
I want to get to, he's going to do the inevitable 8192 over 8192.
let's assume that argument
exactly.
is true. A really good way to see if a mathematical argument holds up is to take the small version of the problem or argument and then scale it up to the extrema and see how it behaves. Let's imagine a fictional millionaire out there somewhere with truly no better way to spend their money other than buying thousands of copies of Pokemon Fire Red and thousands of Game Boy Advances. Now imagine that they get their hands on 8,192 of them. Are their odds now added together to be 8,192 over?
Abso-fucking-lutely.
Nobody makes this
No, I don't think anyone makes this argument.
It always gets brought up. How does this come up? How has it been over 15 years?
Sometimes people do get the maths wrong, and you'll see the mask if it's 2 out of 8192. And this is reasonable to explain it to those people, to kind of extrapolate it out to the extreme. And then they will realize, oh, no, it doesn't work that way. That would be stupid. Because you're just not guaranteed it.
I would say,
yeah.
You could just pull anybody off the street and they would, without knowing anything about Pokemon or 8192, they would understand that this concept of probability does not work. Just by simply talking about coin flips. Just about everybody would know that if you flip the coin twice, it's not going to automatically land on tails or heads or whatever one you pick.
Yeah, precisely. That's the same sort of argument, isn't it? And it's a useful demonstration, I will say, but I just think it's sidestepping the crux of this again.
Exactly.
Yeah,
it's going to point everything into a whole different direction. It's basically diverting everybody away from time and straight into, we're going to go back to in-depth encounter discussion.
Yeah, semantics over probability.
Yeah, it's like you were talking about with the coins, the probability, the chance for you flipping a heads with 1 coin and the chance of you flipping 1 heads with 2 coins is not the same chance.
Is the call quality okay, or do we need to bail and rejoin?
Audio sounds good on my end. Or was it muffled?
Okay. It's a little bit robot-y on my end, but I can hear what you're saying.
Oh, you're right. Yeah, it did.
Yeah, we can just restart.
Sorry about that. Had a bit of an audio issue, and we're back here. So yeah, we were just on the 8192 over 8192 argument that seemingly just never dies. But we'll just go ahead and keep playing.
8,192, 100% odds to find a shiny on any given encounter? No, obviously not. All of the games are completely independent of one another. They have no influence on one another. You're not guaranteed a shiny on every encounter just because you have too much money, way too much free time, and really bad decision making. Each game is still independently
What a roast.
one.
That was so, that cracked me up the first time I heard that.
I mean, Elon Musk can lie about his Path of Exile 2 character, but you can't lie about your shinies. God.
In 8,192 odds. Like I said in my shiny hunting probability video, which explains a lot of the things I'm going to say in this video in way more detail, by the way, you can't just add probabilities together that are independent like this. What if our fictitious millionaire had 10,000 copies of the game? Would their odds now be 10,000 out of 8,192? Over 100% chance to find a shiny on any given encounter? That makes genuinely no sense. Hopefully now you can see how
it makes no sense, but it's still missing a big point that having those systems are going to get you to the point of an expected shiny so much faster than you normally would.
I have nothing else to contribute. I don't think there's been anything else yet.
Before we go on, I'll just say, yes, I agree. In single system, the odds remain the same. However, in a group of systems, the odds are different. You cannot say the odds are the exact same to find one shiny out of multiple systems.
And it kind of
the math is not the same.
And people would say, well, he just said that the systems don't affect each other, but
correct.
What's
that
being
is a
missed?
True statement.
What's being missed is when I'm zooming the camera out and looking at the shiny hunter, whose odds have just changed. The system's, of course, never going to change internally. Let's see where
because he's getting two rolls.
Extreme has already answered the question for us. But suppose you're not satisfied with that answer. After all, somebody playing on 10 copies of the game will most likely find a shiny faster than someone hunting on only one game. And that's true. It's not definitively going to play out that way every time.
Yeah, the second acknowledgement, I think, of the speed up.
Yeah, so why is this such a sort of stepped around topic? Because that's what the debate usually is. That's kind of stepped around.
Right.
Probability is very fickle, but to truly understand what's actually going on, we need to look at the encounter number. When someone...
So I guess that's exactly why it's getting stepped around. It's let's just breeze over the fact that if you have 10 systems, it's going to speed up your hunt so quick, but let's just deep dive straight into the actual in-game odds for each system.
Someone is hunting on, say, 4 games at once, and they generate 4 encounters between the games at the same time. They increase their encounter number by 4, not 1. Multi-game hunting doesn't increase your odds, it just increases the speed at which you see encounters. If you're not cool with that, then you probably need to ask yourself if the number you care about more is how many encounters it takes to find a shiny, or how many hours it takes.
Yep, he's just said it.
Yeah. My head just goes straight back to RNG manipulation every time. Because if you do just care about the encounter number, then you can just literally say that you RNG manip to full odds 1 out of 8,192 shiny. But that argument just gets swept under the rug every time.
Yeah, and I think like he just said, time is a lot of the times time is the biggest thing that everybody's looking for. A lot of times people that method hunt, they're doing that because it gives them a shiny quicker. It's a time thing. And so multi-hunting, if you're multi-hunting, a lot of times you're doing that to save time. Similar to if you're method hunting. That doesn't mean by definition it is a method hunt based on his definition, but the purpose of it could be exactly the same, whether you're method hunting or multi-hunting.
He's just said it, hasn't he? He's just said that is often what would happen. You would often be more likely to see a shiny or something to that effect.
Yeah,
earlier in the video, if you wind it back to the right at the beginning, like right near the start, he goes on a sort of tangent saying, well, that's not what actually happens. It doesn't make you more likely to see a shiny. Because I think he's getting too focused on the independent probability.
Right.
And the fact that each system remains 1 in 81, 92.
Correct.
So it's semantics again. It's not him like contradicting himself so much as his words contradicting. Like, I think he knows what he's trying to say, but the words just aren't wording. Yeah.
It's like you're looking at a system in isolation versus the entire holistic shiny hunt event of multiple systems.
It's as if somebody presented him, this argument with removing the shiny hunter, and he's just focusing on the Game Boy Advance and the games and the multiple different independent roles each game's having. It's like they just completely removed the shiny hunter from the equation, which at that point, it's just like a game spitting out a shiny at the same exact odds, which she's explaining is not affected. But to everybody else in the real world, it's the shiny hunter's odds and their perceived odds of getting the shiny. But it's
your probability of seeing the shiny within the next hour or however long you're going to be doing it for, that's kind of what is relevant.
Rewatching it's
I think
fun,
anyway.
Where he'll give us as the viewer the choice to just what's more important to you, the encounter or the time to get to it. And if you read the comments, everybody's like shouting in the background, "It's the time."
I think it is to anyone outside of this bubble. If I talk to my mum about it, she'll say, "Oh, well, how long is it going to take?"
Yeah, encounters.
A lot of times. A lot of times people outside the bubble, they're looking at it like, how long did you sit here and press that button over and over?
How long is it going to take? I don't know. It might be 1 minute. It might be 40 days worth of solid time. It could be anything. But there's always an average time to odds.
What do you mean?
Always.
How long did it take, Gene? It took me 8,000 encounters. You don't understand?
Yeah, and then they'll ask you, so how long was that?
Yeah,
I've had it happen. I've had it. Those times I used to shiny hunt, at my desk, on breaks, and people will be like, "How long have you been in? Or you're still doing that?" I've had it happen.
Yeah, and you're not using an encounter number there, are you? Because you're shiny hunting at work. I've done it as well. I am not using encounter numbers. This is a purely YouTube-centric point of view, which, I could get onto the whole philosophical conflict of interest between content creation and shiny hunting.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm going to choose not to right here, because I think...
Full-on shiny hunting.
Just to touch lightly on it, I think, the encounter number is definitely a YouTuber-centric metric versus raw time, You can magic up more encounters, but you can't magic up more hours in the day kind of thing.
I think that's
no one can do that.
Segue into this next part here.
Given how every single shiny hunting YouTube video ever states the encounter number as the most important thing, I think we have our answer.
Those are the guys who speak for every shiny hunter. Right there.
Yes.
Those thumbnails.
I'm pretty sure every one of my videos starts with the hours, but okay. I mean, it does include encounter numbers, to be fair to him.
And there's, like you're saying.
I think it does tell a story, and it's interesting to look at. So I'm not completely shitting on it as a thing. I think it's quite relevant, and you can normally glean interesting snippets from it statistically.
For sure, yeah. Like we were saying in the beginning, shiny hunting is like a stat junkie's kind of dream, really. There's just so much different data you can compile and go through.
But the encounter number, without the context of time, it's just, what does it mean?
Exactly, it's empty.
The time gives it context.
shiny charm, for example, if the shiny charm increases your odds from 1 in 8,192 to, say, 3 in 8,192, effectively tripling your odds, the game is, in essence, performing 3 rolls on the Pokemon to check for shininess as an encounter is generated. But you don't see those 3 rolls take place. They happen within the game and they are not independent of one another. There is an in-game function performing that check. And then, when the encounter is finally generated and the Pokemon is shown to the player, the shiny hunter increases their counter by 1, not 3, because the game only generated 1 encounter, but their odds of finding the shiny were better. To show you precisely the difference between method and multi-game hunts, I'm going to use one of my favorite probability tools, a probability space. A probability space is basically where you represent all of the possible outcomes of a situation in some kind of physical space. So for example, let's imagine...
I think there where he spoke about the 3 rolls and the fact that they are no longer independent, I think that's an important thing. From a statistician's point of view, from a pure mathematical point of view, that is an important thing. And this is why people get hung up on it quite often. Because the argument always revolves around, well, every system is still 1 in 8192 versus the method hunt where, like, you know, is just 3 in 8192. It's mathematically different.
And this goes back to that question I asked earlier with is it 3 separate rolls or is it a different odds completely?
Yeah, and I don't actually know this.
And it's still one out of 180 or 8192, then it's equivalent. It's just, it happens to 3 encounters or 3 rolls at once.
But I think it is essentially a matter of semantics at this point, because in a real world application, like, are people going to know the difference between the correct formula 1 minus 8192, 1 minus 8191 over 8192 to the power of 3 or whatever versus 3 over 8192, you know, that
right.
It's splitting hairs.
I agree, but then it becomes, depending on how it actually is programmed, this discussion of multi-hunting could be exactly equivalent to what a shiny charmed is, because it'll still be individual rolls of 1 out of 8192. It just rolls it 3 times versus 3 separate systems. And so
I agree.
It depends on how is it actually programmed. Is it programmed 3 over 8192 or is it programmed 3 separate rolls of 1 over 8192?
It could well be, but I think we just have to choose to trust that his definition is accurate and that they are, you know, dependent events with the shiny charm. Like, it's no longer independent. I think we just, because none of us know for sure, we just have to accept that face value.
But even how he explained it, he didn't really say it was dependent events. I thought
he did mention that.
He gave us the 3 in 8192 number, and then he said it does 3 rolls.
Yeah,
he said it does 3 rolls, but I think he suggested they were no longer independent rolls, which is important. So if we play that again, like, I think he mentions that.
For example, if the shiny charm increases your odds from 1 in 8,192 to, say, 3 in 8,192, effectively tripling your odds, the game is...
Keep going.
Is, in essence, performing 3 rolls on the Pokemon to check for shininess as an encounter is generated. But you don't...
Keep going.
See those 3 rolls take place. They happen within the game and they are not independent of one another. There is an in-game function.
So that's where he says it. They happen within the game and they are not independent of one another. So he's suggesting that it is mathematically different. But again, I think to, like, the average person and the average context of time to odds, like, I don't think it will work out to be vastly different.
Right.
Yeah, I don't understand the coding so much in these modern games with the shiny charm, but because I don't know if it's like behind the scenes spitting out 3 different Rattatas, and if none of them are shiny, it would never show you, kind of thing. I'm assuming that's probably what happens. I don't understand if it, like, there could be a shiny, but it doesn't pick that one.
I don't know. I think we're getting, like, too into the semantics of it now, though, and we should probably move on.
Yeah,
And then, when the encounter is finally generated and the Pokemon is shown to the player, the Shiny Hunter increases their counter by 1, not 3, because the game only generated 1 encounter, but their odds of finding the shiny were better. To show you precisely the difference between method and multi-game hunts, I'm going to use
I think that's interesting, because he only counts 1. You know, what do you count? Are you counting shiny rolls, or are you counting encounters?
That's kind
you could just count shiny rolls.
Exactly.
Choose what to count.
Because the Shiny Hunter is only counting 1 doesn't mean it actually should be.
Yeah, like...
Why isn't the Shiny Hunter counting the rolls?
You can count anything.
Like, even with, if you have multiple systems, you could just count 1 encounter for 4 systems each time you reset, or encounter versus each of them being separate.
Because if you count all 4 systems, then you come back to what I was going on about earlier, where it's like 1 out of 2048.3 something, you know. So statistically, you could still present that as your hunt.
Yep.
I was a bit disappointed that they actually didn't touch on Wavebird controllers controlling 1 game at the same exact time, because, you know, it kind of muddies the water a bit between that and, like, controller mods and somebody actually controlling 4 different systems. But again, that's all kind of nitpicking stuff.
It does, but I think it's like semantics again, isn't it?
Let's get through this section.
Tools. A probability space. A probability space is basically where you represent all of the possible outcomes of a situation in some kind of physical space. So for example, let's imagine a dartboard. The bullseye of our dartboard will represent a shiny encounter. Obviously, that's what we're aiming for. All the rest of the space on the dartboard then is a non-shiny encounter. Now, you throw darts, which is the same thing as running into a wild encounter. The area of the bullseye makes up exactly 1/8192nd of the total surface area of the dartboard. If you throw your darts completely randomly, you'll hit the bullseye with a probability of 1 in 8192. A method hunt increases the size of the bullseye. A multi-game hunt just increases the speed at which you can throw the darts. You're still aiming at the tiny, full odds bullseye. You're just faster at throwing the darts now.
So much to say about this.
Yeah, or you can look at it the way we just looked at it. You know, you could look at it as a sort of unified probability.
Indeed.
In which case, both the dart and the bullseye would get bigger. Like, if you're rolling 4 systems and just looking at it as 1 encounter per...
Well, I like to think of it this way. If we're using this literal dart example, you know, there's like 3 of us here. Hangar's dartboard will be the first one. He's just going to take 1. We're each going to go in a turn. Hangar's going to take 1. He's going to throw his dart at the first board, which is the 1 out of 8192. He's going to miss. I'm going to take my second one here. I'm going to throw my 1 chance at my big bullseye, the method bullseye, and I'm going to miss. But then it's going to come to Jean, and he's going to throw 2 darts with both of his hands. How's that fair?
Yep.
He's got a better chance than me and Hanger. What the heck? Well, maybe not me.
Multiple darts at the same time. Yes.
And so you can, right in this analogy, you can kind of see if you're using it simultaneously that the odds just increased per reset, which is equivalent to like using a Wavebird. Like we were just talking about how do you count it? If you're using a Wavebird controller and you just reset 2 games at once, was that 1 reset? Was that 2 resets? This is like the crux of the argument and where everybody just clashes. Because this is never addressed anywhere. And that's why this video gets released and the comment sections still are going off.
I would argue that nobody has spoken on this topic more than me. Specifically because it was brought to me every single day when I was streaming for like 12, 14 hours per day. It just never ended. Like, it just never ends, dude. It never goes away. And I think it's just this like, if you just acknowledge up front, like, yes, this is going to speed up my encounter rate. Yes, it is going to find more shinies. And that is the goal. Like, we wouldn't be here having this discussion, but it's always the kind of sidestepping around it and the kind of shutting down of that discussion as a thing. Because I think it's arbitrary, right? Like, whether you're full odds, whether you're not full odds, I genuinely think the only thing that you can use to contextualize this is time to odds.
Yep.
You know, it doesn't matter what someone's hunting. It doesn't matter what I'm doing. It doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be doing a 1 in 64 egg hunt or whatever the Gen 2 egg hunts are, you know. And if you're happy with that, then that's it. That's what this is about. That's what this hobby is. Because he kind of gets into it at the end where he's like, you know, everyone can do what they want to do kind of thing. And they can. And they can, but we need to not frame things the same that just actually aren't the same.
I think that's why there's this big debate about it all the time too, because it's kind of like sugarcoating this whole topic of this multi-game hunting and people having the wrong impression that they're not generally just speeding up how many shinies they're going to see.
Exactly. Because like once you take it online, you're open to critique. That's the point at which you're open to critique.
Yep. And I think that, like you said, the framing of it, because the framing of this part right here is that each dart is still, there's a 1 in 8, 192 chance of hitting. But you're not throwing one dart, you're throwing 4 darts. And each of those darts, yes, individually have the frame of, they always bring up is individually it's still 1 in 8, 192. But like when you're throwing 4 darts, that's a different equation than throwing 1 dart.
Yeah, then you've got the compound probability of the 4 darts, which is what I was saying earlier about the splitting hairs. It is statistically, it's not far off the method.
Right.
You know, they might be independent. They are independent, but it doesn't really result in any real world difference if you're looking at it like over the course of an hour.
Yep.
Like it's gonna be a very minor difference statistically, like in terms of that percentage chance of you seeing something over the course of an hour, which is a realistic scenario.
So it becomes the topic of why is it so much of a fight to try to make them different when it doesn't really matter.
Like there's a really big push to differentiate between the method and the multi-hunt.
It is interesting.
Which, you know, I keep saying doesn't even matter to me because I think the whole thing is like this obsession with full odds, which doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. Like, it's a variable. It's another variable along with the encounter rate. And the time is the only constant. I'm going to wear myself out saying that.
Like we've talked about it before. There's some method hunts that take a lot more time per encounter
100%.
than full odds.
And it gets back to like in the very beginning when they're talking about, you know, what you value more between the encounter versus the time. And it's like even with the encounter number of a 1 out of 8192 hunt, like there are these quick like game corner hunts and stuff like that. But you know, once you start adding multiple games into it, it's like, what do you value more? The dart that's hitting the board or the guy throwing the dart? Because I can promise you that nobody is going to upload a video and hope that their red DS that shot out the shiny is getting praise and not that. That's all I can think about when this comes up with this analogy. It's like we're not, you know, celebrating that the red color Game Boy of your 4 got the shiny. You don't really care. Nobody cares what particular game gives you the shiny. If you're looking for it, you as the shiny hunter, that's whose odds that matter, not the game.
Yeah, and the end point is always the highlight, isn't it? Like in these circles that we talk about. Which I think is important with you saying that about like we don't celebrate the system.
Indeed, it's all about
like the end point is just
shiny.
yeah. Well, no, not so much that. Just the end point being the same regardless. Like it doesn't matter which system it comes from as long as there is the end point. Like,
Right.
Let me say that again so that it really sticks into your brain. Method hunts increase the odds of finding a shiny Pokemon on any given encounter. Multi-game hunts just give you more opportunities in a shorter amount of time, but the odds are unchanged. Hopefully now
I guess we'll finish this.
He's right,
see
but it's
why
not.
these two things
On any given encounter.
Yeah.
Isolated to individual encounters.
So he's correct, but it's a half truth.
are different and why shiny hunters are pretty tired of answering this question by now. Ideally, this video can now serve as a mathematical resource from here until the end of time for anybody who ever has a question about this particular topic. Together with my other
Sorry,
shiny hunting
Adef,
probability
no.
video,
I can go back on that.
I'm going to say no to that. Like,
Let me go back.
I do not think they achieved its goal.
My dog was like puppy dreams here.
increase the odds of finding a
think it
shiny
did.
Pokemon.
I think the goal was the specific question, and based on the definition, it is true. Based on the definition he provided of internal game adjusting of odds, it answers the question.
I suppose it does answer his question, but it doesn't answer
It doesn't
what we
answer
think is the
mine.
real question.
Yeah, what he proposed as a question is what he was here to answer.
It's like, you
And
know,
so
Yes.
it becomes, yes,
So
it
actually,
answers.
yeah,
do
I
you
retract
guys
my
consider
statement.
this
And
shirt
I
a
agree with
mesmer?
you now.
Now, is it going to solve the big question that he thinks is going to solve? No.
No, it certainly isn't.
Pokemon on any given encounter. Multi-game hunts just give you more opportunities in a shorter amount of time, but the odds are unchanged. Hopefully now you can see why these two things are different and why shiny hunters are pretty tired
The
of
odds
answering
are
this question by
unchanged,
now.
but they aren't
Ideally, this
changed.
video can now serve as a mathematical
That's the tricky part. Like,
Yeah, that was not a true statement.
it's like,
yeah, like that's a half truth, isn't it? The odds are unchanged
I was going
on
to say,
each
yeah.
DS.
It's like he
Correct.
wrote down, you know, and somebody took a pencil and erased the end of that sentence. It's that's all I can think of in my head when I hear that the odds don't change. Yeah, in your system per game.
resource from
Right.
here until the end of time for anybody who ever has a question about this particular topic. Together with my other shiny hunting probability video, I hope that the math of this very popular niche of the Pokemon community can finally be better understood. Something I want to stress though is that doing a method hunt or doing a multi-game hunt doesn't make you
I think it was a
any
well-made
less of a
video,
shiny hunt.
I'll give him that. Like, I've never seen one of his videos, and I think the production was pretty good. I think the presentation was good.
Yeah.
I was going to say, yeah.
And I probably will also check out that other video that he was talking about. It seems like he might go into even more details on like math things for shiny hunts.
And even
Yeah,
when
it's
I was
interesting that he's
simply
done two videos. Like, with the early context that he said, like, he didn't shiny hunt that much. So, like, how has this even gotten onto his radar, I wonder?
That's what
He may mean similar to me, where it's like once in a while, but I'm not definitely. I don't keep up with like YouTubes and streams, and so like whatever is happening in the community, I'm probably not aware of. But I still dabble here and there.
That is entirely possible.
'Cause it looked like he was streaming at some hunts. I want to say one of the clips was him streaming and finding.
Oh, you think?
shiny.
I didn't even notice that.
that was. in the
Yeah, I'm
very
pretty sure the
beginning.
one.
I think that
Yep.
was him. Yeah.
Okay. Well,
He's-
there we go.
Is it still correct to call Pokemon shiny hunting niche at this point? This video has 120,000 views almost. I think it's reaching the realm of other people who don't typically shiny hunt. So I think that might be.
I'd say
past.
It might still be niche. I'd say a lot of people are aware of it more than they used to because of like Pokemon Go and a lot of other different newer games. But I still feel like a majority of gamers are not shiny hunting. Or a majority of people that even play Pokemon are not shiny hunting.
No, I think they're probably aware of it, but choose not to interact with it.
Interesting.
Right.
I would say that the old school full odds, air quoting full odds, is for sure niche. To me, it just seems like with these new games, it's like if you go anywhere to just try to find out about the game, it seems like it's just flooded with shinies typically, but maybe that's just me finding their specific areas.
You just have luck. You have a risk.
We'll finish this out here.
You can hunt however you want, whether it's on 40 games or 1, or with the shiny charm or without. Hell, even if the Pokemon was RNG manipulated, so long as you're forthright and honest with people about how you got the shiny Pokemon.
I agree with him. Like, this is all good stuff.
Do whatever you want. Who cares? Have fun. This is all a super arbitrary thing
But
we've
who
decided
cares? It's a
to
little
care
bit
about.
disingenuous, I will say. Like,
it is. Yeah, you can't make a video like this and at the end just say, who cares, hunt how you want. Be genuine about it.
yeah, like, you spend 10 minutes explaining the subject and then say, who cares? Like, no. I think that is like an attempt to put this to bed. And it doesn't. Like, it's an attempt to shut down any sort of counter-argument, I think, which, yeah, I don't think is correct. Like, I think this should be open to critique, as we're doing.
Exactly, because...
I do agree with him fundamentally that it's like, anyone can pick their conditions, but I think the conditions are an important part of this. To me, they are. To me, that's important. Like, I select my conditions.
I think the reason...
I don't care if it's full odds. I only care about the conditions, which are the time to odds, typically, for me. I'm going to look at the encounter rate.
Yeah, and I've gotten to a point where I hunt just for something I want to do. Like,
exactly.
If I'm going in playing Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon and going into wormholes trying to collect all the legendaries, that's something that I'm doing. I'm at this point, I don't even like share my hunts. I don't even post when I find things, like, unless it's something that I've talked to people about, like that Charmander that I still have, not the Charmander, what was I hunting? The Chinchar that I still haven't found.
And that's
I couldn't share that with you guys.
I'm invested in that
something, right. Or like the Roman Entes, I got share that. But most of my hunts, I'm doing it for myself. I am not even sharing it. At this point, like I told you earlier, I don't even count the encounters. I just hunt it. When I find it, I collect it. I put it in my home where I can show it off to myself when I need to. But at this point, it's I hunt for myself. And so
that is the average person.
At this point, the encounters don't matter to me that much.
It only matters if you're presenting it. So yeah, you're right. Like, that's the only point at which any of this even matters, is when you take it to YouTube and present it. At that point, people want context. And I think that's why there is this perennial debate, because there are some people that obviously see it the way I see it and think, well, no, you can't look at it like that, because the thing that matters is the time to odds, right? Right? Because I hunt for like X hours a day.
Yep.
Or, the example of my mum, I say to her, like, yeah, do you want to do this? She'll ask me, how long does it take? Not how many times do I have to do this? She'll be like, how long does it take?
All right. Yep.
And
so,
I think,
for example, there's a good example of that. I'm interviewing for jobs, and there's like how many interviews, or there's like how long have you been interviewing for this specific job? Though there's two different aspects, so there's two different encounters. Time is the one that people have been asking more, is like how long. Like, you can do 4 interviews in a week, or you could do 4 interviews over a 2-month period. when
Okay,
when
but
it
they
gets to
follow
that
us interviews,
2 month period, people are like, "What are you doing? Like, why is it taking so long?" Versus,
God.
how many more interviews? Whole lot of interviews. But yeah, it's definitely time is definitely the big factor.
I think time is important to people off of YouTube. Like,
Yeah,
I'm going to get onto the content sphere again and the kind of how that favors YouTubers, because I think it does. Like, and that's like the unspoken truth here that no one wants to re-acknowledge. At least in my view.
That's a good point to specifically tie it to encounters being maybe not just YouTube, mainly YouTube, but just social media in general.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's broader than YouTube. It's not a YouTube phenomenon. It is a social media phenomenon.
yep.
Post a picture of a shiny,
Twitter.
and usually, like 9 times out of 10, you're going to ask how many encounters did it take. Like, even me on this channel, where the idea was to record everything I was doing in Gen 2 just to see how long it would take over time. Never about the encounters or A catches. And even then, I was just sitting one day and I was like, I don't want to record this Suicune crystal hunt. What does it matter? And then I ended up getting the shiny. And it's like, hey, it didn't even occur to me to like pull out my phone and record it. So that I completely missed that. And I wasn't counting encounters. I was just sitting there resetting for, honestly, I didn't even...
Another thing, like in relation to this channel, you're talking about this channel. Another thing in relation to that is the Dodrio speed up mode, right? You know, we're not here debating whether your shinies with speed up are full odds or not full odds. Like, it just doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter, because at that point, you're picking your conditions and you know the ones with speed up have a shorter time to odds. And that is your conditions that you've set out for yourself.
That's a very good point. And it's something that actually gets overlooked in this very conversation too. In fact, do they even mention speed up emulators, or they obviously don't mention the natural official way you can speed up Gen 2 games, and like you're saying, Pokemon Stadium Dodrio Tower mode. It's just something that I was talking about earlier, where if you try to search like a quote unquote full odds or just any shiny hunt times 2 or times 3 speed up, you won't find any results really. You'll just find some people who speed up their egg hunts because method hunters they don't really care. They're just trying to do it as fast as they can with the tools they have in-game available to them. But if you search up just Gen 2 shiny of your choice, odds are you're going to find somebody double, triple, quadruple, or more hunting these Gen 2 shinies. So it's very interesting how things have played out over time. Like obviously, with the games that we're discussing, I do believe that Gen 3, the Game Boy Advance, and the Gen 4 DS games, when it comes to the quote-unquote old school games, are more popular than Gold, Silver, and Crystal for various reasons. But nevertheless, if you search up any Gen 2, you're gonna see people triple or quadruple hunting Lugia, Ho-Oh, Suicune, any of those, but you'll never see it in speed up. It's kind of an interesting phenomena, actually.
It is interesting. Because to me, from that mathematical perspective, it doesn't really matter. Like,
it would still be
how you're achieving
odds.
more encounters.
Yeah, sped up. And actually, just based on this video, like I was saying earlier, RNG manip in Fire Red, Leaf Green, technically it would be full odds.
However,
right?
yeah, whichever method you're using to reduce your time to odds does not impact how I view it. Like, I would consider it pretty equivalent. You know, obviously the control mechanism's gotta be different. Like, you're gonna be more comfortable if you're just using speed up, I expect. So there's that aspect to it. But yeah, purely from the mathematical point of view, again, it's like semantics.
Right. It's a triple speed up hunt in Dodrio Tower would be exactly the same as a triple hunt in theory. Assuming they get the
If you're getting the same encounters per hour, then yes.
Which they should, yeah. And so maybe I'll do a little experiment and do a hunt like that and name it Full Odds and see what happens. Just thinking out loud.
Yeah. Well, play the video again.
In a video game anyway, the shiny hunting community is full of delightful folks who just want people to experience fun journeys and adventures through shiny hunting just like they have.
Delightful
but how you
folks,
do
then
that
there's us.
doesn't matter and is completely up to you. I asked Absol what shiny hunting meant to him and why it's important, and I'm gonna let him answer that in his own voice.
Shiny hunting, to me, is the ultimate background activity, and I think it's a very personal journey. Everyone values their shinies in different ways, and for some people, the shiny Pokemon itself is the end goal, and for others like me, it's the journey to get there. I personally believe that the data
Once
for
again,
shiny
I'm going to
Pokemon
say,
on its
no one
own
be
is
mean to
objectively
Absol. If you're watching this, just don't do that.
Yeah, I don't.
That's
I don't
not cool.
watch much shiny content anymore, but I love Absol videos. His videos are pretty good content.
Yeah. We just feel the need to respond to this because we don't agree with the end conclusion of this video. Like, yeah, I think there has to be representation for this side of the coin.
worthless. Because even since the dawn of Pokemon time, it's always been possible to carefully hack in any Pokemon that you want and make it look reasonably real enough. What I'm deeply enamored with instead is the journey to achieve that data. I love watching all the ways that people take it on, whether they use some method to chain for it, get it in just 5 minutes in Pokemon Go on Community
and this is
Day,
actually perfectly in
full
line
on.
with everything that I used to say. Like, I think we can all agree on this point because we always used to talk about the journey. The journey is what matters.
And like if it, you know,
Trust in the process.
a lot of people like to bring up hacked or cheated shinies, and we've always said at the end of the day, that person's just cheating themselves, really. And I think
100%.
most people would agree with that statement.
Yeah, I feel like the most memorable shinies are the ones that you the journey builds that story for it. Like the Roamer Entei that I found, that's a journey that I went through, and I'll remember that more than something that
That's a hell of a journey. I mean, God.
So I think like they like you guys have already said, like the journey is part of the biggest thing. Like, and like you say, if someone cheated if they hacked in, whatever, like it is what it is. That's on them. They're not experiencing the actual shiny hunting joy.
Yeah, but Jean, how many methods did you go through for that Entei? Like, it's basically the story of the stream.
Right. Like all the ones that were found. Mahogany. All of them.
You spanned every single one.
Yeah, he was probably using Cause Boob method or whatever.
I think I can't remember what the newest one you guys did, but whatever that one, I think I tried that like
32 poison method.
It might have been right before. It might be the one right before that one, then.
Route 46.
It might be Route 46. I think I did that like 6 times and found it like after that cake dropped. I was like, all right, I'm gonna try it. And it was definitely a journey.
But yeah, I think Absol's little cameo here is quite nice and quite poignant.
Whether they're using one console or 50, or even carefully manipulating the RNG to land on the perfect shiny frame. What I love are the stories that can be told through that, the unbelievable twists and turns, or the crazy circumstances under which shinies show up.
There's no shiny hunting leaderboard. There's no big grand prize at the end of this for anybody. Shiny hunting is an individual journey.
Oh, but there is in certain circles.
Yeah. I was about to pause it.
But there is in certain circles. Like,
There are
okay,
leadership
I
boards.
certainly don't keep score. You don't keep score. He doesn't keep score. Jean doesn't keep score. But that's not
Other
everyone,
places-
you know. That is not a definitive statement.
That's true.
I think it probably should be, you know, because it's fucking RNG, isn't it? Like, you can't really score RNG. Like, I get what he's saying.
Nah,
I am
Hanger,
the
you can make
shiny
your own luck.
champion.
What are you talking about?
I am the champ.
I mean, yeah, you do create your own luck. Choose to partake, you create your own luck. God, people used to get heated about me saying that, didn't they?
Still do. It's just
Work on for yourself and no one else.
Random.
That's it. At the end of the day, genuinely, who cares if multi-game hunting is a method hunt or not? To be clear, it's not. But you should just hunt the way you want to and let other people hunt the way they want to. That. And stop trying to invalidate their success and happiness just because you had to walk uphill to school both ways.
So that's kind of like the end.
The sass. Yeah, that's kind of like the ending point. That fucking sass is funny. Like, Jesus.
But ironically,
I know what he's trying to say, but people do want the acknowledgement of what you're doing and how, like, and that's why there is constantly this topic coming back over and over and over again. You know, it's kind of like, it's not entirely fair because it's sport, and sport isn't the same as looking at RNG, but if someone tells you that they can fucking bench press like 120 kilos, what is that in pounds? That's like 200 and some pounds, right? It's like 2.2 pounds to a kilo. So that'd be well over 250. You're then going to want to know, are you doing this with equipment? You know, like, do you have a bench shirt or something? Like,
I think it gets
do you have gear
too, because it's always presented this way, right? Like, don't invalidate the multi-hunters because it's not a method hunt. But
I'm not invalidating anyone. If they're happy doing it, they're happy doing it. But I'm going to point out that it is different to what I'm doing.
That's the thing.
Because it is.
It's not like invalidating.
If anything, it's invalidating what I've been doing.
That's what I was trying to get at, yeah. It's not like... I mean, obviously, we're not...
So, you know, we can all play that card.
We're not, like, going in, seeking out people who multi-hunt and say it's not the same as whatever we're doing, which might not even be true, depending... Like, if I'm egg hatching a 1 out of 64...
Well, I'm not seeking them out, but if they come into my stream and say that to me, I am absolutely telling them they're wrong. Absolutely, because that's my house. Because what this video kind of does, ironically, is it tries to move a multi-hunt up the tier, kind of. And I don't know if tier's the right word, but they're certainly not... I'm not sure tier is the right word, but it portrays it in a certain way.
Yeah, exactly. It's trying to put it in the same category when they're not. It doesn't mean that one is better than the other. It just means that they're completely different. And I don't
think it's wrong to acknowledge that they're different, because there seems to be this constant push to make them the same and make them equal. But I don't think it's wrong to consider them different. Like, I don't see why that's such an issue. You don't... Okay. Like, the method hunters are quite happy being considered as different, aren't they? Like, they're quite happy being considered as a different thing.
Indeed. Yeah. It's a different category.
But if you try and say that this is a different category, then you're going to meet some pretty stern pushback. Like, I met stern pushback in my own fucking streams to the point where I was just like, okay, we're not talking about it anymore after months and months of it.
I guess that you have, like, they are different because you're doing different methods. Like, you're doing different things. But I think the biggest problem or the biggest issue I always see is saying one is easier than the other. And that's not always the case.
Yeah,
No, because it's difficult to multi-hunt as well. Like, you know, for me to play devil's advocate on that side of it at the moment, like, I know that me and Rich can't do what Rusting does, which is like, he does double Viridian, doesn't he? Or double pallet.
I tried it once and it's impossible for me to... I'm not...
On the Gen 3 dogs. Like, we can't do that. That's difficult.
Right. And I
like,
think
yes, he'll probably have a faster time to odds, but that's hard. We can't do that.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing. I feel like a lot of the discussion becomes, either method hunts or multi-hunts. They're easier than doing a different type of hunt. And that's where it becomes like, it's not always the case. Like, just because someone is doing this doesn't mean that oh, they have it easier. Like, it's still random. Like, you have to go and get it yourself. Like, someone might get lucky on a full odds hunt, and the first time they open a game, they get a starter shiny. Well, maybe not anymore, so they don't really do those. But in the older games, you could get a starter the first time you ever hunt. And I
think it's a problem of language again. Because I like to think of my hunts as like their own mountain, right?
Right.
So I like to think of them in terms of scale. Like, not ease, scale.
But for me,
it's about the scale.
But that's based on the hunt and not the method of the hunt, if that makes sense.
It is.
Like, the hunt of a specific thing.
But people use that. That's what people sometimes mistake for the ease or difficulty. Like, they're talking about scale, we're not.
I feel like time per encounter is a bigger scale than method.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm getting at. But like, when people talk about whether a hunt is difficult or whether a hunt is easy, they're typically talking about the scale that we're talking about. So, you know, if the mountain is big, they're going to say it's hard. But it's not hard. If you're climbing that mountain with comfort, it's not hard, is it? Like, I was climbing each of those roamers with comfort. I was getting like 12 encounters per hour, but you know what? I was comfortable. They were easy. Those roamers were easy.
Right. And people will always come in to the streams and I'm like, I can't believe you're doing this. I would probably never do this.
But you know what would be hard for me? Doing double pallet. It'd cut the mountain in half, but God, would that be a hard climb? Maybe not in half, but you know, it would cut it by like a significant amount if I got efficient. But yeah. It's all semantics. It really is. And as long as you are happy with your conditions and what you're doing, what your mountain looks like and how you plan to climb it, that's all that matters. So I agree with the sentiment of him saying, you know, everyone do what they want. But if you're going to come to me and compare it to what I'm doing and tell me it's the same thing, I'm going to say, no, it's not. Because no two hunts are the same thing. You know, I even go back to me talking about me doing mahogany versus like, now if I do the Route 38-32 poison method, that version of me is not doing the same thing as I would be doing now. Not comparable in any way. Different mountains.
I guess it gets
the oxygen was thinner on the first one.
It's a little tricky with roamer hunts because of the mechanics involved, I suppose, where with every other hunt, typically it's understood what the set encounter is going to be.
Yeah.
But yeah, I guess there's like...
God, this is going to be a long video.
Yeah, it is.
We've rambled, haven't we?
That's usually what happens. Yeah.
RPH.
I guess like...
Yeah, these old men just rambling over here.
Definitely old men.
On that note, did you want to do like final remarks? Because I think like...
I suppose we can.
At the end of the day, I kind of feel like it's not like this is a big deal outside of what we do. It's just when we're in the hobby and we always come across stuff like this where it's kind of condescending. Like, you're gonna make this video 10 minutes or whatever and kind of bring up this straw man argument that nobody's making, completely gloss over the real discussion, which is that people aren't just going to call out and say, your multi-hunt isn't as good as my single hunt. That just rarely ever happens unless it's a complete troll, and if you know somebody's doing that, you just ignore them and move on. I think what upsets people is the fact that they're just scrolling or being part of a Twitch stream, YouTube, Twitter, or X, Reddit, whatever Discord, wherever they're on, and they see these shinies posted with multiple systems, and it's called full odds, like every single time. I think that kind of insults people's intelligence when they're reading this stuff and they want to be a part of this hobby and understand, why it is what other people are hunting, and they want to have a relatable experience with someone else. And you just kind of get told that multi-hunting isn't a method hunt, and everybody kind of knows that already, and you just kind of tiptoe around the fact that it sped up the hunt, and it's not exactly the same thing as what somebody might be doing with their hunts. Even multi-hunts, you can't even compare like quad hunting versus like a time system. It gets very arbitrary once you add one system, really. And, everybody wants to talk about the odds within the system. And it's like, if you're saying they don't change, then why are you even making it to the point where you're adding a system anyway? If it's not giving you any sort of, if you're claiming it's not giving you any sort of benefit, then why are you doing it to begin with? That's another kind of question that never really gets addressed, I feel like. Other than, you can hear I do it because I can. It's like, well, that doesn't really answer it philosophically, I feel like.
And to be clear, it's not a problem as long as that person is happy with their mountain. They can change their mountain if they want. I ain't changing mine. That's my policy. Once I set my mountain up, that's it. But they can operate differently to me. That's fine. But it's always when it's brought to me, like personally on that level, and like they're called the same thing. Like it's the half-truths. Like, yes, this is the same, but it's not really, is it? And I think if we are sort of like wrapping up the video, it's important to say once again, this is a fluid discussion, not an important discussion. It's not very important, is it, compared to what's going on in the world? But yeah, this is a fluid discussion. There's like no script. Yeah, we're like 100% open to criticism. This is my point of view, Rich has his point of view, Jean has his point of view. There's 3 individuals in here. Like, we're not just one person.
Jean, anything?
Yeah, so like, feel free to comment.
Yeah, I like they just said, we're all individuals. We all have our own view on this. I do think, like, to me, when I watched the video, I didn't take it, I guess, as condescending, more of as it is incomplete. Like, it's not.
That was my take.
It's not a complete discussion on the topic of what actually people are looking at or people are discussing about full odds and multi-hunting. And like we talked about earlier, the term full odds can be very misleading, or it's a generalization that like helps explain what you're doing. But it's become now this thing where it's an undefined definition. Where is it really, like, I think there's better ways to explain a hunt than just, it's a full odds. And yeah, it's an ongoing discussion. It's fluid. Again, we're not bashing this guy. We're not bashing the video. We don't need any hate going towards him. We just feel like it's an incomplete discussion.
Yeah, this is a critique. It's definitely a critique because I don't feel that our side of this is represented at all. So that's kind of why I guess we all felt the need to share our piece.
And yeah, there just has to be a counter to this, basically, to say, like, hey, everybody.
But it's hard to make a video. So, again, I'm going to say, like, all respect to adef for making the video, talking about this stuff, because as someone that was there for like 14 hours daily, every day on Twitch, this is a loaded topic. It's just a loaded topic, right? And people always come to you with it. And if he streams, I don't know if he does, it looks like he does, he's got his Twitch there, then I'm sure it comes up over and over and over again. Like, whether or not he wants it to, maybe he touches it, maybe he doesn't. Like, I know I used to engage with it, but after a while I got so sick of it, I was just like, there's no point discussing this, because it's not really relevant to me. It doesn't change what I'm doing. And it just pisses people off for some reason. Like, you just can't... They won't accept me saying that what they are doing is different to me. Even if that's what I consider it to be. That's my opinion, and that's what I'm going to say in my stream, but it's unacceptable for me to say that.
Yeah, I feel like this discussion it's similar to the Michael Jordan, LeBron James discussion. Like, I don't think any sides are going to change based on any type of discussion about this. Like, a lot of people have their sides, and they're going to be in their sides.
In English, is this Messi versus Ronaldo?
Messi versus Ronaldo is another good one. Like, the people have what their sides are going to be, and I like the whole Jordan, LeBron, Messi, Ronaldo. I just stop even entertaining those conversations, because no one is going to change their side on that discussion.
Oh, completely. It's a waste of time. God. But yeah, I don't really know what else we have to say on this.
Well,
I feel like we've said a lot.
I'm sure there's some things we're going to look back and want to clarify on. I know that's usually the case.
Yeah, like it's
just improving like this.
It's all so fluid, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just kind of going in the motions. I mean, there, like you're saying, there's so much you can just say about this stuff. It's like, you never want to come out and encourage one hunt over the other, one way over the other. Like, I'm never going to, if somebody's single hunting, I'm never going to say, why don't you just method hunt or RNG hunt? It's just...
And I'm sure, like in his video, he had issues with semantics. I'm sure we are going to have issues with semantics. I will stand by most of what I said I expect, but there may be something that I've said that someone comments and says, I don't think Hanger was right when he said this. And you know what? If I hear it back and I read it back and I don't agree with it, I will say, yep. I don't agree with what I said there or how I phrased it.
I think that's just like the nature of this particular type of discussion. It's just, if you leave out, like you're saying, the word language, if you leave out one word, it's going to completely change the argument that you have about what we're kind of trying to present, like they were doing, I feel like, in the video.
Like, I know I've called his video disingenuous quite a few times, and I don't want that to come off as too mean or like hyperbole, because it could be extended to that, right? So I don't know how I phrase things, but I feel, disingenuous is accurate. I stand by that, but yeah, just be kind. That's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys taking the time to do this. Maybe who knows? We'll see other topics come up in the future. That might
if people like us talking freeform, we can do this again. Like, I'm not opposed to it.
Yeah,
I think it actually went quite well, and it was quite healthy to talk about this.
Yeah, it's good that we really wanted to emphasize, to just get a different counter argument out there in this space, because there are people, I feel like, I don't know if like underrepresented is the right word, but there's people like,
I think so,
like Gene's saying,
because other people have this opinion,
people that just hunt behind the scenes. They just do it for their own journey. They don't have any desire or want or need to post their
There's
stuff.
definitely people that are underrepresented. That's why there's 120,000 views on the video and all these comments disagreeing.
Yep.
So I agree.
For sure, yeah, this topic definitely pulls some strings. I mean, here we are discussing it right basically within hours after all of us seeing it, just because it hits a certain
And
area. You know?
we're not even that involved right now, are we? Like, honestly, I haven't streamed
Monster
in.
Hunter Wilds beta time too.
Yeah, we took time out of the Monster Hunter Wilds beta. I hope you all feel awful. God damn it.
I feel like that's the perfect way.
What do you mean?
That's the perfect way to end it. So, yeah, who knows? Stay
God.
tuned.
Trap Nation not happy.